One of the cognitive biases that intrigues me is something called the IKEA effect. I came across it in a paper maybe 10 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago. I think it was originally published around 2012, if I'm not mistaken. It was a group of psychologists who were doing this study, and they discovered that when people build something for themselves and they evaluate that with something that's identical and it's built by someone else, that they tend to rate the one that they built higher. Hence the name, the IKEA effect, where maybe you buy a table and you build it, and there could be another one that was built by someone else. It looks the same, but you have more attachment and you give a higher rating to the one that you built. And it's true with Lego kits, it's true with origami, it's true with other kinds of things as well. And it's a phenomenon that's pretty common. And I'm sure that there are anomalies. Sometimes maybe we downplay our own creations and we give credit to something someone else built more than ourselves. But the IKEA effect definitely shows up in our work and in our life when we're trying to solve problems, when we're on those literal and metaphorical treasure hunts. So let's take a little bit of time to talk through it and see if we can't figure out a few ways that we can mitigate the risk of falling into the IKEA effect trap. Because just because you built it doesn't make it better than something else. In fact, sometimes they're identical, and sometimes the one built by someone else is better. So if you're trying to solve a problem, for example, you can get caught up in spending a lot of time doing the research, trying to figure things out, and your solve, your solution, your model is something that you get so attached to that even when something better is presented to you, you may actually discard it for your own creation. And that's the thing we want to avoid, because it's preventing us from getting what we want, which is discovering that literal or metaphorical treasure, solving the problem, coming up with the best possible result. So with that in mind, let's dive in. Here are the 5 tips that I've jotted down to try to work through this. The first one is try to measure results and not effort. Sometimes when you're doing self-talk, you'll notice this. Well, I put hours of work and time into this solution, into this problem, and you're focused upon how much time you will have wasted if it's not used, if you don't use it. And one of the problems with that is it's not necessarily, when you're putting a lot of time and effort in something, it's not only valuable because it's used. What's also happening is you're being formed in the process of working on something. You're gaining new insights, you're gaining new skills, you're gaining new perspectives, and that's the real value that you take away from it, even if your end result is not the one that's being used. And I run into this all the time working in organizations, and especially in organizations where people are dealing with innovation and new products and new services, and you get these different people that are fighting for their idea to be the dominant one, as opposed to trying to discover which one will be the best, which one will help accomplish the goal the best. So if you measure results, that can help you get past this sort of effort piece. And you're really trying to just figure out what is actually achieving the goal. What is helping solve the problem? What is not helping solve the problem? And so you become kind of dispassionate about and detached from your creation, because your creation is only as valuable as what it can do. Let's imagine that you're trying to dig a hole and you build a shovel, and it's a really bad shovel, and you are getting maybe a half inch every 30 minutes into the ground with your shovel, and someone introduces you to another shovel that can get you completely done in 10 or 15 minutes. It would be foolish to just insist that your creation, your product is so much better and insist on using it when there's a better product sitting right next to you. But if you're focusing on the results, what is helping to achieve the goal, that can lead you to making some better decisions. Second one is to use the swap test. So the original research team found that people misjudge their own work. So one way that you can fix this is you can trade solutions with someone else and have them evaluate it blindly. So you get solution A, B, and C, and they're labeled A, B, and C. No one knows who created it, and you have a small team of people, and they evaluate them. They come up with a list of criteria that you're going to use in common. What makes a good solution? It has to do this, and this, and then you do kind of a rating and ranking, and you can debrief it together. And that can get you past sort of this attachment to just yourself. Now, it still hurts a little bit when you've put a lot of time and effort into something, and you want your solution to be the one that people rate highly. But the reality is you're going for objective truth. You're going for something that has the best chance of success. And that means that we have to set our egos aside, and by doing this kind of swap test and this blind test, you can get a better, clearer assessment of the design, the solution. The third one is to test with real users. If you have something that you think is a great solution, you think it's a great solve to a clue, put it in the hands of someone who's not you and have them use it and have them try to sort of talk through out loud and walk through how they would use it. And if you see them stumbling and struggling and so forth, that can give you some insight on maybe the potential weakness to your solution. Now, sometimes people get so attached to their product where they think, well, you have to be really smart to use it. You have to be me in order to use it. And well, in some cases, I guess if it's trying to solve a treasure hunt and you only need one person to solve and find the one treasure, that works. But in those metaphorical treasure hunts in our life, and most of the time when we're trying to solve something, we're trying to come up with a solution that actually can be replicated and can be useful to other people as well. And so you want something that can actually work for other people, and it's not so isolated and personalized that it only works for you and your unique role in the world and all the unique experiences and knowledge that's in your head. So it's good to test it, and even just to observe and see what confuses them, what makes sense to them. It can give you some really great insights, and it helps you escape that brain of yours to see how it's going to work in the world beyond your brain, because that's what we're trying to accomplish. The fourth thing then is to break and rebuild. So there's a whole field of design thinking. I have taught entire graduate courses on design thinking that teaches about deliberate iteration, that really if you build something, it shouldn't just be you build it once, it's done, it's good to go, now let's adopt it or not adopt it. Instead, you're going through these iterations. You're trying to build something in stages. You build version 1 and you test it out and you get insights, and then you build version 2 and version 3 and version 4, and it's a kind of experimentation mindset. And that can do wonders in helping you avoid the IKEA effect, where you're just so attached to your first build. If you're going into it with the mindset that it's my first draft, and you're calling it a first draft, and you're expecting from the beginning, before you even start, that you will not use the first draft. If you're going into it and saying, yeah, that's probably going to take me 3, 5, 10 drafts before I get to the best possible one, then it's going to help you to let go of that attachment to your baby, the idea that you treat as kind of your baby, your creation, and it's perfect because it's yours, and it's going to let you get to this kind of experimentation mindset that gets to better iterations, and you get better and better, and you create something that's really has a wow factor at the end. And then the fifth one is to create collaboratively, because there is some evidence that when you're creating something together with a group of people, it can reduce that and weaken that kind of IKEA bias. So if it's you and several other people and you're all kind of contributing, and it's not just yours alone and you're doing it in a group, it can, for one reason or another, it seems to just reduce that emotional attachment to the idea where you're just fighting for it because it's yours. And you get different perspectives, and along the way, you're challenging one another, you're encouraging one another, you're questioning one another in helpful ways. And what you come up with is something that is a version 1.0, and you're going to iterate, and you're going to keep getting better and better and better over time. And that is how you work your way through the IKEA effect. It's fascinating, though, because the IKEA effect, there's a beautiful part of it. I believe that's part of why our brains maybe were wired and designed to work this way. Sometimes it's good to take a lot of pride in your creation. In fact, it can lead to a kind of contentment in life. Maybe you build something in your home and it's a bookshelf and it's a little bit crooked, and maybe it's not the most beautiful masterpiece in the world, but it's yours and you're proud of it, and you're not seeking after something better, or you're just happy with yours. Maybe it's a house that you built, or an instrument that you built, or something that you built. And so there's a lot of beauty and goodness in just taking pride in your own creation, realizing it may not be the best in the world or perfect, but valuing it because of the time and the effort and the energy you put into it and the lessons that you learned from it along the way. And yet, when we're trying to solve problems, when we're trying to create solutions or products or services or discovering literal and metaphorical treasures, there's a lot of merit in moving beyond the IKEA effect. And the 5 tips I just gave you should help. Hope you find it useful. I look forward to your comments.